There are 100 people on death row in the state of Pennsylvania. This is part 6 of the series. Theor Davido, 22 years on death row. Davido was taken into custody by Ohio police and FBI agents in 1997 on suspicion of attempted murder, kidnapping, essay, and weaponry. Davido was found guilty on reduced charges of assault and escape from Ohio's Belmont Correctional Institution. Having served just 2 years, he was granted release. In January 2000, he moved back to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, along with his girlfriend Angelina Taylor and their 2-year-old kid. A few months later, on May 12, 2000, Davido was charged with essaying the 20-year-old lady and beating her to death. The unmarried couple had a long history of violence, according to testimony given during a preliminary hearing. According to a forensic pathologist's testimony, Taylor had severe beating-related cerebral hemorrhages and serious head injuries before passing away. In addition, he added that Angie Taylor had bruises all over her body, as well as ligatures and scratches on her neck. According to medical proof, Angie was essayed. In court, Davido's younger sister said that the altercation between Angie Taylor and her brother was so severe that she had to leave the house and call the police, claiming that a guy was beating up a girl. There was no one answering the door when the police arrived. According to Davido's testimony, he heard police approaching and became frightened, leaving the house through the roof. A longtime acquaintance of Davido's said that on the morning of the murder, he informed her he had hit Angie because he was angry. Davido allegedly informed the woman that Angie was breathing funny as he departed from their house. Although she could not stand up, Davido reported that her eyes were open. Angie Taylor was discovered by police on a mattress in a third-floor bedroom after breaking through a window in the property. She was practically naked and unconscious. Ronald Taylor, 22 years on death row. John DeWitt, a maintenance worker, grabbed the hammer in self-defense because he was so afraid of Ronald Taylor's verbal abuse. He was trying to fix a door at Taylor's residence. Taylor remained angry when DeWitt left after being summoned away for another job. Shortly after, Taylor opened fire at one of DeWitt's co-workers and then proceeded to shoot at 2 fast food businesses located in the Pittsburgh suburbs. There were 3 people badly injured and 2 dead. Taylor, who was 39 years old at the time, was taken into custody in an office building after he kept law enforcement for 2 hours at a senior hospice center, holding 4 or 5 individuals hostage in wheelchairs. Kenneth Harston, 21 years on death row. After killing his wife Catherine, Harston set the house on fire, killing Sean Harston, age 5. Kenneth Harston was discovered by firefighters at the top of the basement stairway inside the kitchen. He had a laceration on the right side of his neck and multiple puncture wounds to his chest. He was very aggressive towards the paramedics, and before being taken to the hospital, he had to be secured with handcuffs and stretcher straps and then given paralyzing medication. Catherine was discovered in the kitchen by firemen. When she was taken out of the house, she was dead weight and had a hole in the side of her skull. Her blood sample did not exhibit any signs of cyanide or carbon monoxide according to toxicology screening. Sean was on the living room couch, laying beneath bags and rubbish when they found him. There was a blanket over his head and face. When paramedics found him, he was still alive, but he had 2 heart arrests and passed away in the hospital while receiving treatment. 2 or 3 instances of blunt force trauma to the head were the injuries that ultimately resulted in his death. Herbert Blakey, 21 years on death row. Herbert Blakey's estranged wife, Sasha Blakey, shared an apartment with Duana Swanson and their kids at 63 North 14th Street in Harrisburg. On February 1, 2000, Harrisburg police responded to a report of a domestic disturbance at the residence. They saw Blakey and Sasha fighting. Blakey was taken by the cops from the flat to his home because he would not leave. Later that evening, Sasha left the house, leaving her 2 infant children, Basil and Aaliyah, with Swanson and her son Maurice, who was 13 years old. Blakey went back to the flat to get some clothes. He also called the apartment multiple times requesting to talk to Sasha. Because she was afraid, Swanson had her friend Garth George stay with her until Sasha got back. Additionally, Swanson told Sasha that Blakey had visited the apartment. In the early hours of February 2, 2000, Blakey broke into the apartment brandishing a butcher knife and approached Swanson and the kids in a bedroom. With the kids gathered around the bed, Blakey leaped on it, took Swanson by the arm, and held her out. He let go of Swanson to pursue Maurice as soon as he fled the room. Upon arriving at the rear door, Maurice opened it to discover Harrisburg's police officer William Vernowski standing in the threshold with his revolver out. The officer heard a woman screaming for assistance inside the house as he arrived at the residence, and he went to the rear door while responding to a pending incident. Blakey turned to face Swanson at that moment, stabbing her in the chest with his butcher knife. Swanson's hands sustained additional damage throughout the struggle. Blakey was repeatedly urged to put down the knife by Officer Vernowski, but he persisted in trying to stab Swanson. Swanson and Blakey collapsed to the ground. With his knife in hand, Blakey leaned over Swanson and choked her until she passed out. Blakey turned his back on Swanson and kept going in and out of the bedroom while yelling, "Shoot me, shoot me." He was threatening Officer Vernowski with a knife. Then, reaching over to the kids who had been sleeping on the bed, Blakey grabbed Sasha's 14-month-old son Basil and held him in his left arm while he held the knife in his right, putting the blade against Basil's throat. Officer Vernowski tried to talk with Blakey, but he would not put the baby down and he fled into a back stairwell. Blakey proceeded to cut Basil's throat in a back and forth motion with the butcher knife, resulting in a gaping stab wound in the child's neck that went all the way to the bone. It was only after being shot 3 times by Officer Vernowski that Blakey gave up control of the child. The officers failed in their attempts to resuscitate the baby. My question is, why didn't they just shoot him? They stood there watching him murder Swanson with bare hands after stabbing her several times, and then when he took the baby, why they didn't just shoot him? Why? I feel like they should have taken some type of action, not just let him murder everyone. Stephen Triber, 21 years on death row. Triber set his house on fire on the evening of March 9, 2001, while Jessica, his 2-year-old daughter, and girlfriend Denise Riddle were sleeping inside. Triber and Mrs. Riddle fled the burning house, but Jessica stayed in her crib until firefighters came to take her out, but it was too late. Triber's neighbor, who ran to assist after smelling smoke coming from the house, testified throughout the trial that Mrs. Riddle was screaming for assistance, while Triber was standing quietly with his arms folded on a second-story deck. Triber inquired about his dog's well-being, but remarked, "The fireman will get her," in reference to Jessica. "In any case, she's probably dead," he said. A fire marshal who examined the scene testified that gasoline, clothes, straw and candles were used to ignite the fire at 2 locations, one in the garage and one in the basement. One wire had been severed and the house's security system had been turned off. The marshal also saw a chain ladder attached to the house. It appeared to have been tacked to the house lately, as there were no rust marks on it. Triber was unexpectedly composed and Jessica's bedroom door was open. Ernest Hul, 19 years on death row. According to court records, Hul shot and killed his estranged wife and their 2 children after breaking into their house. This murder took place on December 24th. The bodies of his wife Jean and his daughters, 20-year-old Victoria and 15-year-old Elizabeth, were discovered on Christmas morning. The girls accused Hul of essaying them for years, and he was facing trial for those charges. Sergeant Robert Gilver stated that he visited the Hul residence on Christmas morning in a response to a call from family in the Johnstown region asking why they hadn't shown up as scheduled. Gilver claimed that as soon as he entered the kitchen from the garage, he saw Jean Woolever's body. A noise pulled officers upstairs, where they discovered Victoria Woolever's corpse. Madison, Victoria's 9-month-old daughter, was nestled in the crook of her outstretched arm. The child was weeping, but not hurt. Stretched out over a bed in a bedroom was Elizabeth Hul. Everyone had been shot in the head once. Lavar Brown, 18 years on death row. The state of Pennsylvania sentenced him to death for the murder of Robert Crawford. Court records state that Lavar Brown killed Robert Crawford with a gunshot after harboring resentment towards the man. Lavar Brown was implicated in a pharmacy robbery 1 month earlier that resulted in the death of a man. Michael Pruitt, 19 years on death row. In 2005, Pruitt was found guilty of Greta Googler's murder that occurred 3 years prior. Inside her North 9th Street house, the 69-year-old Sunday school teacher was robbed, essayed, and strangled. The victim's nephew, Gary Googler, expressed his frustration that his aunt's murderer is still serving a jail sentence due to Governor Tom Wolf's 2015 moratorium on the death penalty. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.